guys, Stephanie here, and I'm back with more movie chatter. And what I have for you today are my top 15 films of 2018. Yes, I know I usually do a top 10, but there were so many great films, and that's not even counting the ones that I haven't seen. I just said forget it. I went with the top 15. So please keep in mind these lists, I tell you this every time, these lists are purely subjective. They are for fun, and it's just my favorite film. So if your favorite film is not on the list, don't hate me. Just tell me in the comments what are your favorite films from 2018. And again, please keep in mind that if there's a very popular film that is not on the list, chances are I haven't even seen it yet, because what I realized when I was doing this is that I have not been to the theater as much as I normally would go. And life just got a little hectic this year, and I didn't make it to the theater as much as I would have liked to. But I do have a lot of movies that are on order, so that when they come to home release, I will be able to talk about them and review them for you. So I'm going to keep my commentary really brief, because most of these I have already talked about on the channel, and I don't want to be redundant and boring and all that stuff. So I'm just going to get right into it, and these are in no particular order. And this first one I think is the only one that I haven't really talked about, with the exception of showing it in my last haul video, and that is Hereditary. And the reason I haven't talked about it is very intentional. I didn't want to do anything that would be in spoiler territory, because I think from the marketing, the trailer, to the end credits, they did such a great job of not giving anything away. And that's rare these days with movies. And what I can tell you about this one is I totally expected something different. I watched the trailers, I expected one thing, sat down and watched the movie, and I had a totally different experience, and I loved it. I loved it from beginning to end. I'm a big fan of Toni Collette. I thought she was amazing in this. I thought she carried the whole movie. There are so many things about this. It is so unsettling, so disturbing in parts, but yet you can't look away. You just get sucked right into this world. And it really is a family drama. And it tells a story that I haven't really seen before. It tells it in a way that I haven't seen before. So I think it's very unique. I think it's so good. It's so solid. And like I said, it just sucks you right in. And you never really know what exactly is going on until the end, when it kind of wraps it all together and it just brings it all together. But what a powerhouse of a movie. And if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend checking it out. And one of the things they do say on the front of this is, it is this generation's The Exorcist. And I really think that we're going to find that statement to be very true, because I think in years to come, what's going to happen is they're going to refer back to this film the way we refer back to The Exorcist about its impact on the genre, the horror genre. Because I think that this film did so many things right, and it did so many things different, and it's such a unique experience that I think it's going to be one of those films that they just refer to over and over and over again about things that are done right in horror. And I think this is a home run all around. And if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. The 4K looks great, it sounds great, and I just love it. I can't say enough about it. And I wish I could say more, but for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm not going to ruin it. Just check it out. And this next one I have talked about, and it is called A Prayer Before Dawn. It is the true story of Billy Moore, who was a mixed martial arts fighter from the UK, who ended up in a Thai prison. And this film comes across as really authentic, and the reason for the authenticity is because they actually filmed it in a real Thai prison with real prisoners. So I give a lot of credit to the dedication of the whole crew and everyone involved in this film for making a very real look at life in a Thai prison. And it shows how once he was able to get involved in the boxing team that they had in the prison, how it kind of changed his life and helped him with his prison experience. But if you haven't seen A Prayer Before Dawn, it is a powerhouse of a movie. And like I said, it's based on real events, so definitely check it out. And my next based on real events movie, you guys should know that you should expect this one coming, because I've talked about it before and I'm talking about it again. Spike Lee's BlacKkKlansman. And again, the true story of Ron Stallworth, who was the first African-American police officer to be on the Colorado Springs Police Department. And he made it his mission to go after the KKK and try and bring them down. And I think that John David Washington is excellent in his lead role. I think Adam Driver is awesome in his supporting role. And I think the way they did this movie from beginning to end was great. The storytelling was great. And I think they had a nice mix of this really important story that they wanted to tell, and then they had these appropriately placed comedic moments that added that levity that we needed to kind of take a breath and then get back to the real important story that was going on. And I just think that they did a really, really great job from beginning to end on this one. And I know it's going to show up at award season, and so deserving. So definitely check out BlacKkKlansman if you haven't seen it yet. And this next one, again, no surprise. I told you it was going to be on my list, and I did a full review of it. Pima and I did a review. I'm going to link it right up here if you want to see it. Wes Anderson's Isle of Dogs. It's his second stop-motion animation film, and I just love this one. I loved it from the first time I saw it. And like I said in my review, you can view this film in a couple of ways. One is you can just see it as a hero's journey of a little boy looking for his dog who's been banished to a place called Trash Island with all the other dogs. Or you can see it as, like I said, it's an onion. This film is so layered and so deep, and it has so many cultural references and messages, and it really does hit on the world that we live in today and the society that we live in today and all the impacts of everything that goes on how we live. And if you see it in that way, this film is a really, really deep film. And every time I watch it, I pick up on a different message, nuance, reference, whatever you want to call it. But it really is one of those films with really high rewatchability, and there's great rewards in rewatching this. So if you haven't seen Isle of Dogs, I highly recommend it. I'm really hoping that it gets a Criterion treatment because I know Wes Anderson has quite a few films in the collection. So I am really hoping for that, and I would love to see what they do with this one. But yeah, Isle of Dogs is a great one. And this next one, this is a recent newer release, and it is the 6th installment of the Mission Impossible franchise, Fallout. And the thing I love about this one is usually in these franchises, these bigger franchises, by the time they get to the 5th or 6th film, you're like, oh, all right, it's the same old thing. But I feel like these Mission Impossible movies, they just keep getting better. And Tom Cruise is so good with his stunts, and there's so much good action going on. The action sequences are great. The story is great. The dynamics between the cast members are great. Their timing is great. Simon Pegg he adds that, again, that needed comedic moments, those comedic moments that we need to kind of offset the seriousness of the story. But this just works from beginning to end. And like I said, if you want to see a good action movie, so many people have called this the best action movie of 2018, and I have to agree. And right now, I think this is my new favorite in the franchise. And I hope they keep making more because they keep getting better and better and better. And Tom Cruise just continues to amaze me with his ability and his stunt work. He's amazing. I have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, and I see him running like a madman, jumping between buildings. So kudos to him for doing a great job. And that would be my 5th pick. So I'm going to grab my next pile of 5 films, and I will be right back. Okay, guys, I have my next 5 films, and we're just going to keep rolling. And this next film holds a special place in my heart because it is actually the first film that I reviewed on the channel. And it is Love, Simon. And this is a coming-of-age movie, and we meet our main character here, Simon. He's 17, and he tells us, "I'm just like you." That's how the movie opens up. And what we find out is that Simon has a family that he likes. He even likes his little sister. He has a group of friends that he likes hanging out with. But Simon has a secret. He is gay, and he has not told anyone. And he is trying to figure out, he's very comfortable with who he is. He's just trying to figure out how to bridge that gap between who he is and letting the people in his life that are important to him know who he is without anything changing, because he's very, very happy in his life, as he should be. And I think that this film is so important, and they say right on the back it's a genuine groundbreaker. And I think it's one of those films that needed to happen. It needed to come out there, and for lack of a better term, it needed to come out. It is a conversation starter. It is a great film for young people, for families. It's appropriate. It's a very clean film. Nothing crazy happens. Like I think I've said to a lot of people that I've never seen teenagers in a movie that curse less, but it's a very clean film, and also the characters in the film are very relatable. I mean, Simon himself, he could be anybody's brother, nephew, son, and I just think that that makes this movie easy to talk about, and it's a real conversation starter. And I think if it does nothing else than start conversations happening, I think it's done its job. And I know it was very well received, and so many people got behind it, and I couldn't be happier to see how well it did. But if you haven't seen Love, Simon, I highly recommend it. And just like the audience, when I saw the movie, you'll be cheering for him by the end of the movie and hoping that he gets his own great love story. So yeah, check out Love, Simon. It's a good one. And this next one took me right back to my childhood, and it is the only documentary in my pile, and it is Won't You Be My Neighbor? The documentary about the life of Fred Rogers, who did the television program Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And I actually grew up with watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but I didn't know a lot about Fred Rogers until I watched this. And this documentary just blew me away because I really found out who the man behind the story was and what a genuinely good person he was. I mean, you kind of got that vibe from watching the show, but to really hear the people who worked with him and who knew him and cared for him and who he showed a compassion to, and to hear their stories about him, you just knew this man was a one in a million. And I wish we had more Fred Rogers in this lifetime, because we could certainly use it right about now. But if you haven't seen Won't You Be My Neighbor, I highly recommend it. And whether you grew up watching the show or not, you're going to fall in love with this. And he is such a good man, and he did so much to impact so many generations of young people, because he really believed that connecting with young people was the real key to society. And I believe that to be true, and I think we need more people doing what Fred Rogers started. So yeah, definitely Won't You Be My Neighbor had to be on my list. And this next one, 8th Grade, it is another coming of age. It's written and directed by Bo Burnham, and we have Elsie Fisher, who does a fantastic job playing Kayla, who's a young lady who is in her last week of 8th grade, and it examines that awkward time when you're leaving middle school and you're going to high school, and you kind of don't know what to expect. You're not really sure who you are. It's a very awkward, uncomfortable time. Boys and girls really don't know how to mix well, and this just does such a great job of showing how awkward it can be and how we just really kind of fumble through and just hope we get to the other side. And everybody, we've all been there, or you will get there eventually. And this movie just does such a great job of showing that. And it also is very relevant to current times, because it also shows how she's totally distracted. She's wrapped up in her phone, and she has a YouTube channel. So it really shows the impact on computers and phones and social media on today's young people, and how it affects their relationships with other young people and their family. Because the whole film, her father's trying to talk to her and connect with her, but she's got her earphones in, and typical things that we see in most movies involving young people. But it's a really good one, and there are some terrific heartfelt moments that go on in this movie that it's definitely one, bring your tissues, because you're definitely going to well up. And I just think it's a great one, and I hope it gets as much praise as I think it's worthy of. So yeah, 8th Grade, check it out. And this next one totally surprised me. I had no interest in seeing this. And part of it is because I am admittedly not the biggest fan of Charlize Theron. I like her in some things, but not, across the board like a lot of her diehard fans. But the trailer didn't interest me, and it's Tully. But here it is in my top 15 for the year, and I just thought this film was great. It totally surprised me. I totally underestimated it, and I think this is a really underrated film. And if you haven't checked out Tully, I highly recommend it. I talked about it on the channel. What it is, we have our main character played by Charlize Theron, and she is an exhausted mom. She has a few kids, a newborn, and she's exhausted. She's trying to do everything on her own. Her brother offers to pay for her to have a night nurse so that she can at least get some sleep. She reluctantly agrees, and it kind of changes her whole life. but this is a very heartfelt, real look at parenting, and it is not parenting in the perfect sense. It's parenting in the real sense. But there's a lot more going on than just that, and I don't want to get into it because I don't want to spoil it, but the ending of this movie totally surprised me, totally changed the whole movie, put it into a new light, and made me want to sit down and watch it again. So there's definitely high rewatchability in this one, and I have seen it again. I've seen it a few times since the first watch, and it gets better every time. So if you haven't seen Tully, definitely put it on your list to pick up. Even if you just get it as a rental, it's a good one. Definitely check it out. And this next one, this is such a great movie. It's another one, a great action movie. It is called Upgrade, and I know this is showing up on a lot of people's lists because it was definitely a fan favorite. And we have our main character, Gray, right here, who ends up after an attack. It takes place, it's kind of a futuristic thing where they're in cars, self-driving cars and things like that. Everything's computerized, so it's a futuristic movie. And he is old school. He likes to work on cars, he builds muscle cars, and he has clients who want these old school cars, which would be basically our cars that we're driving today. And he ends up in a mishap, and he and his wife are attacked, and he is left paralyzed. And one of his clients says to him, I have this device called STEM, and if I implant it in you, you will regain use of your arms and legs and you'll be fine. And he goes along with it, and STEM ends up taking control of his body, and that's what I'm going to tell you. But there's a lot of great action sequences. There is a lot of, the special effects are great. There's gore. This movie has it all. It has all the elements that you would want in a great action film. And Upgrade really surprised me. I enjoyed this from beginning to end, and if you haven't seen it and you're into the action thing and you don't mind a little bit of blood and guts every once in a while, definitely check out Upgrade because you're not going to be disappointed. So I'm just going to grab my last pile and we'll wrap this one up. Okay guys, I have my last 5 films and we're going to call it a year. And my first one here, I wanted to see in theaters, but it was out for like 2 minutes and then it was gone. So I never got to see it until it came to home release, and that is Blind Spotting. And we meet our main character who is spending his last 3 days on probation, and he is witness to a police shooting, and we kind of see how this affects him going forward in the movie. He also has a best friend who is a white gentleman, and he is kind of reckless and doesn't worry about his behavior. And it kind of they kind of conflict with each other because this guy, our main character, he's got 3 days left before he gets his total freedom, and he's hanging out with this guy who's completely reckless and has no worries and doesn't think about the consequences of his actions. And I can tell you that this movie was really good. It does get a little intense in places, but that's to be expected with the content that they're dealing with. But I think this has a lot of relevance to the world that they're living in and, you know, things that happen in our world around us. And I think that they have a message and they have something that they want to say, and they definitely say it. So I think this is the type of film that if you can go into it with an open mind and just see it for what it is and see what they've done, see the genuine chemistry between the actors, the writing, and what they're trying to do with this movie, I think it's definitely a conversation starter, and it's something that's going to make you stop and think. And I think if you can go into it that way and just see it for what it is, I think you're really going to enjoy it. And it's definitely one that you're going to want to watch more than one time. I think there's high rewatchability in it because there is a lot going on, and it kind of goes fast in places. So I think that there is high rewatchability in it. I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, but other than that, I think the film held up great, and I can't say that I was disappointed in it as a whole. So definitely, I would say definitely give it Blind Spotting a look because it's definitely a good one. And this next one, I really enjoyed this one as well. And whether you're a fan of Marvel or not, you can't deny the impact that this one had on the whole Marvel universe, and that is Black Panther. Broke all kinds of records at the box office, and once I watched it at home, I could totally see why. I thought all the actors were great. I thought the story was great. I enjoyed the character of Black Panther as soon as he started showing up in the Marvel movies. And I'm really happy to see that he got a standalone movie. And I especially enjoyed the parts that took place in Wakanda. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was beautifully shot. It was beautifully told. I thought it was a really impactful movie. And I think this is a really important movie. And I'm really excited to see where they go with this character moving forward, because I think there's a lot that they can do with it. And I genuinely enjoyed this one. So yeah, definitely put Black Panther on your list. And I know it's a fan favorite. I know a lot of people that have seen it multiple times, and that doesn't surprise me. But yeah, definitely put it on your list if you haven't yet seen it, because it's a good one. And this next one, a lot of people categorize this as horror. I put it more into the thriller category. And this one I actually did see in theaters. And I will tell you why it's on my list in a second. It's called A Quiet Place, stars Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, who also directed it. And the main reason this is on my list is because I cannot imagine how much work it took to think of every single detail about how we make noise and to change that for this movie. Everything. They changed everything down to even how the kids played a board game. And also, the other thing is to have a movie with virtually no dialogue and then completely get your message through and your message across to your audience. That just amazed me. And I can tell you, but when I saw it in the theater, it was the tension and the anxiety was so palpable. People in the audience were afraid to move. No one spoke. I hardly even heard people eating their popcorn. That's how much no one wanted to make any noise. So they really did impact the audience with their message that they were doing in the movie. It's also a very atmospheric movie. It's the setting is awesome. And I just think that there is a lot that they did right in this movie. I think it was really, really well done. And like I said, I would call it more of a thriller than a horror. The monsters didn't really scare me. It's kind of, what you would expect it to be. But definitely, it was definitely atmospheric, definitely anxiety-inducing. And I would say that it's a really, really effective thriller. But I hear they're making a sequel, so I'm interested to see where they go with it. But yeah, A Quiet Place was a really, really good one. And this is the 4K. And it looks great and sounds great on 4K. So if you love the movie and you want to pick it up, definitely check it out on 4K. And this next one, I am guilty of not seeing it in the movies because I had social media burnout from it. But once I saw it at home, I really enjoyed it. And it is the Avengers Infinity War. And I've seen all the Avengers movies, and I have to say this is probably my favorite. And I really love the way they brought all these characters together with all these different storylines, and they just make it work. And the action sequences are great, the special effects are great, the humor is there, everything that we would expect from a great Marvel movie is there. And even the way they ended it, I think it was what it needed to be. And I'm really interested to see, and I'm excited to see where they go with the final chapter that's coming out. I believe it's coming out in the spring, which seems pretty quick, but I am really excited to see where they go with it and how they wrap things up, because this one I think is going to be really tough to top. And for the maybe one person who hasn't seen it, I don't want to get into any spoilers, because I know with me I saw a little too much on social media, and I think initially that took a little bit away from my experience with it. But once I actually sat down and watched it once or twice, probably the second time, I really got into it, and I really, really did enjoy it, and I enjoy it for what it is. And it's a really, really great Marvel movie, and it's a great addition to the MCU. So yeah, definitely check out Infinity War if you haven't, and the 4K looks great, so definitely check out the 4K. And my final film for the top 15 list, I do not have a physical copy because they are not available yet, but it is A Star is Born, starring Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. And this one I actually saw in the theaters. And it is the fourth reboot of this movie. It is the third one that I have seen, and I will go out on a limb and say it is my favorite of the reboots that I have seen. Bradley Cooper did a great job performing. He did a great job directing. Lady Gaga is a powerhouse. She has an amazing, beautiful voice. I've always really enjoyed her voice, but she can act. I mean, she showed us in this movie, not only can she sing, she can act. And I'm so excited to see where her career goes from this movie. I mean, Bradley Cooper already has an amazing career, but I'm really excited to see what Lady Gaga can do in the future, because I think she did a fantastic job in this. The chemistry between the characters is undeniable. They did such a fantastic job. Everything in it works. The soundtrack is great. I have it on my iPhone. I play it in the car. It's great. But yeah, I really enjoyed A Star Is Born. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out when it comes to home video, home Blu-ray or DVD, whatever it is that you watch, or even if you stream it. But definitely, it's coming out, I think it's coming out in January. So I have to check my list. But it's coming out soon, so definitely check that one out. So that is going to do it. Those are my top 15 favorites for 2018. I hope you guys enjoyed this because I really enjoyed doing it for you. Like I said, if your favorite was not on my list, definitely let me know down in the comments what your list is. If you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up, leave me some comments, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified when I upload my content. And I hope you all have a wonderful, safe, and happy new year. And I have a lot of plans for the channel moving forward in 2019. So I hope you're all here to join me. And I want to thank you as always for being here and supporting me and supporting the channel. And that's going to do it for me today. And that is a wrap.